And B'siyata Shmaya will jump back into Torah Chof that we basically did a very lengthy introduction in Torah Chof on Wednesday, where we spoke about the Tisha Tikkun and Yakir and Esmasr L'Dikna, the 9 holy rectifications, the 9 aspects of the Yud Gimel Midas of Rachamim that are passed down from the upper beard, like we spoke about, of Arik Anpin, and passed down to the lower beard, right, Kiviyachol of Zer Anpin, which are 9 of the Yud Gimel Midas of Rachamim that are incorporated into Anhagas HaMishpat, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacts with the world using these 9 Midas of Rachamim. And we went through what they are in the Pasuk, right, after the Meraglim, when Moshe Rabbeinu is davening for Rachmanis once more, and he mentions 9 of the 13 Midas of Rachamim, as well as in this teaching from the Zohar Kodesh and Sefer Tzniusa, in the 3rd parak, of where on the face these 9 different aspects are. We spoke about that. And then we learned the psukim inside from the psukim that discuss the main Meriva. And we spoke about how the whole thing begins with Midbar Tzin. Right, where Klal Yisrael arrive at Midbar Tzin, and over there Miriam is Nifteres, and over there the Be'er of Miriam is Nistalik, and the people are fighting with Moshe Rabbeinu. And we explained that this is all a symbol for something that happens in every generation, which is the neshama through which all the biurim of Torah are flowing down through this neshama. And then at the end of the shir we spoke about Rabbi Nachman and his mother Fega and his daughter Fega, right? And now he believed that was the neshama, and it's a very interesting thing because Torah we generally associate with men and masculinity, but over here there's a female neshama through which all of the Torah that all of the men are studying are actually coming down through a woman, right? Through Miriam in her generation, through Fega, the Fegas in Rabbi Nachman's generation, and ultimately when this neshama's words become cold, which was Midbar Tzin, when the Dibur becomes Mitsunan, right, when the Dibur becomes cold, so then the Be'er of Miriam, right, which is the flowing well springs of Ein Mayim Ala Torah, it stops, it ceases, and she's called Miriam, this neshama, because she's Misubelas B'Yisurim, right, because Paspa Melech Toichal, etc. And Nistalik HaBe'er, and the Be'er goes away, and then the people fight, and that was Vayarav Ha'am Im Moshe. Right, so just let's go inside from there. Yeah, so Vizeh, and take a look at just go back a couple lines. Vizeh b'chinas Midbar Tzin. This is the aspect of they arrived at Midbar Tzin, Shu b'chinas Dibor Mitzunan. Cold words. Sheshames and Miriam, that over there, the Biurim of Torah are Nistalik, and Miriam is Nistalekes. B'chinas Haneshama Sevelas Miris Hashibet Ala Torah. And this is the aspect of that soul that's experiencing bitterness, and the bitterness of this world as a result of her commitment to channeling down the Torah Akdash of Aznastalik HaBe'er. And then the Be'er of Miriam, which is the Bi'urim of Miriam, right? It's the same word, Be'er, Bi'ur. And the Bechinas Be'urei HaTorah, it ceases, it goes away, and the Be'er of Miriam stops allowing water to flow through. And that causes there to be fights, that the people are fighting with Moshe Rabbeinu. This is the aspect of the Meriva that we mentioned that awakens as a result of the lack of clarity. The people don't have clarity anymore. So those that were receiving from Miriam are similarly called Moirim, right? It's like they are Hasidim of Miriam. They are Moirim, like that's how we would refer to them, right? She's Miriam, they're Moirim. They're those that are drawing from Miriam. It's the same root letters, right? Mem, Rish, Mem. But ultimately, they are also called Moirim because they are teaching, right? Gam heim Moirim es Moirehem kenemar umitalmida yosim kulam. Students can oftentimes teach their teachers. So Moshe Rabbeinu refers to these people as Shimuna HaMoirim. That's what we had learned last time. Let's jump back into his base now. And the tzaddik says like this: So after this neshama of Miriam is nistalekes, after Miriam and the be'er of Miriam closes off, So then, what are we going to do? We have to draw Beit Riyat Torah back down into this world. So the first thing is that the tzaddik and that the Rav, the one who's trying to draw Torah down into the world, needs to discover for himself diburim chamim kegach le'esh, to discover how himself to speak words of fire that are similar to the words, the original words of Miriam, right, of that neshama. And where does this dibur come from? How does a person get words that are diburim chamim kegach le'esh? And the answer is va'dibur nimshach milev ha'elyon. Says the Rebbe, there's something called the lev ha'elyon. There's something called the elevated heart. B'chinas, the pasuk says in Tilim, tzur levavi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the rock of our heart. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and an upper realm in the spiritual hierarchy is called heart. So we'll explain this more in a minute. Let's just go a little bit further. And so what's required is to pour out our heart in tefillah. And through our tefillah, Kadosh Baruch Hu's mercy will be aroused. V'niftach leiv ha'elyon. And that leiv ha'elyon, that heart, that source, as we're going to see, opens up. And ma kasher rachmim and the leiv, ki ikar rachmim hu balev. Because the primary compassion that a person has is not in their toes, it's not in their fingers, it's not in their elbow, right? A person has compassion in their heart. There's a part of the person that's woken up to feel compassionate to something else. You feel a pain in your heart when you see a person in pain. And the same is true for that Lev Ha'elyon. It's the root and the source of compassion. And all of a sudden that heart opens up and words begin to flow down from that place. See, he's able to sort of hack the system. He's able to sort of hack into the source from which Miriam had served. Right, Miriam is the kinoi, right, just the symbol for all of these kinds of souls throughout history that served as the sort of like the storage center for all of this diburim chamim. And over here, we're able to somehow go straight to the source, even in the absence of a Be'er Miriam. We're able to still draw down Torah if we can get to the Lev Ha'elyon, if we're able to get to that place. Now, when we talk more Kabbalistically in the context of the system of the Sephiros, which we always go back to, it's the fundamental system of reality, and certainly as it relates to this area of Torah, so this is what it's all about. When a person goes into the system, and you think of which of the Sephiros is associated with the heart, right? So which of the Sephiros is the heart? So the Zohar Kadosh says in Pasach Eliyahu, which is basically a primary text that presents the 10 Sephiros in a very, very clear way. The Zohar says, or the Eliyahu Navi says, quoted as the Zohar in the introduction to Tikkun Zohar, he says, Bina liba uba halev mevin. The pasuk says halev mevin, the heart understands. And the Zohar says Bina liba. Bina is therefore the heart. Halev mevin. Mevin is Bina. Halev mevin. Bina is associated with the heart. When we say in the morning, at least in Nusach Sfard, I'm not sure if it's a Nusach Ariel, so I imagine it is, the same B'libeinu Bina lahavin lahaskil, right? So in Ashkenaz it's the same B'libeinu lahavin lahaskil, but in Sfard we say the same B'libeinu Bina lahavin lahaskil. That word Bina is there in the context of the saying B'libeinu, right? Because we make a reference to the Lev, and Memela, we automatically are going to make a reference and mention Bina. The same B'libeinu Bina. The Lev Ha'elyon is associated with Bina. Bina is a place of Rachmanus. Bina, you'll remember, is the intermediary Sefirah between the upper realms, which are completely inaccessible, Keser and Chachma, that are Hashem's will for creation, which is totally hidden, and Hashem's unified master plan, Chachma, which is also just held in an akudah, right? It's just in a dot that's Sasum and Chasam. It's completely closed up and it's inaccessible. And Bina, much like a womb, right, of a woman, takes in the seed, kiviyachol, of Keser Chachma, or Chachma, which is the seed as it is released from Keser, And in an energetic sense, obviously there's no like actual womb. We have to be very careful. We're using words that are, can bring up physical concepts, but it's not physical. But in an energetic sense, Binah is the womb that takes in the seed of Chachma that is encapsulative of the essential spiritual energy of Keser. So Keser is Nislabesh in Chachma, right? Chachma, the pasuk says, "May Ayin Timatze." Chachma emerges from the realm of Ayin, and it is Kolet. It is taken into the realm of Binah, and from there, right, just like the womb of a woman, of a mother, the whole of reality begins to grow and begins to develop, bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. Slowly but surely, Binah becomes the Eim Habanim, right? And Binah is referenced in the Zohar Kadosh as the Eim Habanim, Loisikach Eim Alabanim, right? The mother of the children, because from Binah is released all of the energies of multiplicity. All of a sudden, from Binah, whereas before everything is unified, right? Keser and Chachma and Binah, everything is totally unified. Here now it comes down into the realm of Binah, and then it's released into the world of Olam. It's released into a world of He'elem, where on the one side, it's interesting, we refer to Keser Chachma Binah as the Alma de Iskasia, as the hidden world, right? But then from there's another kind of hiddenness, because from there we have multiplicity, where God's unity is hidden, and now it's hidden for a different reason. Right now it's revealed, but it's even more hidden, because now Hashem is hidden, even though the world, our reality, is revealed. So everything is in relation to what? Right? So in relation to us in the physical world, Keser Chachma Binah is the Amud Iskasia, because it's a hidden spiritual realm that we can't access. But in the world of Gashmias, that unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu becomes hidden dafka in the revelation of the Alma Dezgali. So as the world is revealed, that whole secret realm of the inner workings of creation, which is Keser Chachma Binah, is hidden, and Olam Chesed Yibane, from Chesed, which bursts forth from Binah, as Binah gives birth to reality, Kiviyachol, is Chesed Kavur Tiferes Netzach Hod Yisod Malchus. Like all the spheres burst forth from there. And so therefore, because Binah is the place which is bridging the gap between unity and multiplicity, it is both the place where, like the Zohar says, Minad Din and Misarin. It's the place from which on the bottom half of Binah, meaning in terms of what Binah's mashpia, Din begins in Binah, because that's the place that all multiplicity, which is Din, right, which means forgetting Hashem, which means the possibility of living without realization of the One, without realization that Baruch HaTayva Meitiv and Baruch Ta'ina Emes, it's always Baruch, that Chesed u'Mishpat Ashira, that Belekim Al Davar B'Hashem Al Davar, right? Binah means that a person can live in this reality where all of a sudden the Achdus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore the Kol Mad Da'avid Rachmana is Litavavid, is hidden. And that's Minad Din and Misarin. That's where all Din comes from. But on the other hand, if from our perspective we wanted to access that reality, there's only one place to go, which is if Binah, the lower half of Binah, produces all the Din, so then where are we going to get unity? Is the upper half of Binah. And that's the side of all the tzaddikim where Ein Hadinim Nimtakim, right? Din can only be sweetened, Ella B'Sharasha. Only in its shorish. What's the shorish of all din? Binah. So really, it literally all hinges on the sphere of Binah. Maybe the most important sphere in a certain sense, even though they're all very crucially important. If they weren't, they wouldn't be there. Right? So each one serves its role. But Binah is, in a certain sense, the whole secret of reality is folded up into Binah. Everything. Right? Because that is the place where we have the opportunity to access that which is beyond. Chachma is way, way, way beyond. Right? But Binah enables us to be able to look beyond the surface of our reality and to bring all of the din and sweeten it, ein adinim nimtakim, to sweeten all the din, ela b'shayrasha, to go back to the womb, which is still reality as we apprehend it, but the ability to find oneness within our reality. That's Binah. So this is the Lev HaElyon. This is the Lev HaElyon, and that's Rachmanas. Right? That's the place where Rachmanas abides. Rachmanas is in the Lev. Binah is a place of total mercy. It's just that as a result of the unfolding of the mercy of Binah, right, of Hashem's mercy as it's symbolized in Binah, the world has to unfold, for 6,000 years, and we have to get to Mashiach, and the whole story has to wrap up, and it's ultimately going to be seen as Azim Ali Schak Binu, the greatest laughter, the greatest gratitude, and the greatest Haida'ah, which is also associated with Binah, which is also Amud Aseh, the world to come, the world of oneness, by Yemahu Hashem Echad Ishma Echad, it's all the same thing. Exactly, right? B'diuk, Rachman Aliba. Beautiful, right? So Rachmanas is linked to Leiv. Leiv is linked to Rachmanas. And this is a reference to Binah. So we're learning over here that really, in order to get words that are chamim kegachale eish, just like where does the body get its warmth from? From the heart, right? And the heart is pumping warm blood. We're warm-blooded. We're mammals, right? We're warm-blooded beings. And that's all, the heart is the place of warmth. And that's why the heart has become just, societally, colloquially, the heart is always, when a person has a lot of heart, they're very warm, right? Why? Because warmth and heart always go together, because that's what the heart does for the body. In a physical sense, and over here we're speaking in a metaphorical or really metaphysical sense, we say that in order to get words of Torah that have to be the shayrish, the root of all bi'uri ha-Torah, meaning, in order to be able to communicate HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love, Rahmana Liba, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself is just full, he's called Rahmana, he's full of compassion. In order to communicate that, we need to draw warm words from the source of compassion, which is Binah. And in Rabbi Nachman, it's taken as axiomatic that any Be'er of Torah that doesn't come from that place is not a true Be'er of Torah. Meaning, any Torah that isn't reflective of this ultimate warmth of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it might, like in the terminology of Rav Nosson, it might be MS, but it's not MS la'amito. Rav Nosson says that extremely clearly. Any Torah that pushes away, no matter what its source is, if it pushes a Jew away, it's not authentic Torah. Because loy achbetz b'mois hames ki im b'shuvay midarka v'chaya. The pasuk says unequivocally, HaKadosh Baruch Hu only wants to draw close. And so but the Gemara makes it very clear, the Ramchal brings this in B'Sil Sisharm, only if they'll listen, right? And if they're not going to listen, it's going to be counterproductive. Don't say it, right? And a person has to constantly be thinking, who am I talking to? How am I talking? Who is it shaykh for? V'chule, v'chule. But by the Rebbe, in order to draw down Be'uri al-Torah Amitiyim, it needs to be warm words that are emerging from a realm of compassion, which is the Leiv Ha'elyon, which is Binah. Okay. It says the Rebbe of a Leiv Hanal B'chinas Sela. This Leiv is an aspect of a rock. Shemishama Dibur. And Dibur comes from this place. B'chinas Mili B'Sela. There's a concept, the Gemara Megillah, Mili B'Sela, words with a Sela. Sela can also be money. It's a form of cash, right? Mili B'Sela. But in this context, the Rebbe is using Sela as like an actual rock, and Mile B'Sela. We see that there's a connection between Diburim, words, and the rock. And B'Sela B'chinas Tzur. And Sela is just another word because it means rock. For Tzur, Tzur is also a rock. Tzur Yisrael, the rock of Israel, right? And we said a few lines ago, go back up to the third line in the paragraph, from the Pasuk Tilim, that Tzur Levavi. The rock is connected to the concept of the heart. Bebechinas, Pasach Tzur, Rebbeinu Shalom, you opened up the rock, the Yezuv Mayim, and water flowed. Now, which rock was that being referred to? What was being referred to in that pasuk? The Mei Meriva. That water flowed from a tzur. What's the tzur? Says the Rebbe, Tzur Levavi. What comes forth from the tzur? Mili B'Sela. Words come forth from the tzur. V'hu b'chinas leiv. B'chinas Tzur Levavi. This is the aspect of that elevated heart of Binah. B'chinas Tzur Levavi, which is the aspect of the rock that is associated with the heart. And the heart is stirred with compassion, and warm words begin to flow forth. But Bechinas, the pasuk says, Cham libi b'kirbi. We learned this in a previous Torah. Cham libi b'kirbi. David HaMelech says, my heart grew warm within me. Ba'agigi tvar eish. Right? Dvarim kegachale eish, words that are full of fire. Ba'agigi tvar eish, in my thoughts, fire was burning. And what happened? Dibarti b'lishayni. I channeled it into my words. I brought that into my words. Ubelev hazeh, says the Rebbe, ubelev hazeh ksuvim kol be'urei Torah. All authentic Torah interpretations that are revealed bit by bit throughout history by the tzaddikim may be most embodied and encapsulated in the words of the Hasidic masters, and even then, maybe most encapsulated in their perushim to the Teichacha, where you can give any number of horrible interpretations of the Teichacha or just translating the words. And if you take a look, for example, in Sefer Dagamachne Ephraim, from a Ephraim of Sadokov, Rabbi Nachman's uncle, if you take a look in Kedushas Levi does some of this work as well, they turn all the curses into blessings. It's a pella. Take a look at Dagamachne Ephraim. He finds a way to interpret the whole Teichacha as the greatest
blessings,
the greatest brachas in the world.
The story with one of the rabbis,
yeah,
that one year he fainted during the Teichacha. They said to him, I don't understand, why did you faint during the Teichacha? He said, because the Balkur was different. Because the Balkur used to be his father, and he said when he used to play the Teichacha,
you only heard brachas. Beautiful.
Now the Balkur,
yeah.
Balkur.
Yeah. So those are Be'urei HaTorah. That's a way to interpret the Torah. A way that's Makarev and not Marachim. Right? A way that communicates HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love. And whatever we're teaching is presented through the lens of relationship. That's what he's talking about. Ubalev hazeh ksuvim kol Be'urei HaTorah. That's where all Be'urei HaTorah need to be coming from. Be'bechinas kasveim al luach libecha. Where the words are etched into the luach of libecha. There's a heart, there's a leva eliyot. Torah has to come from heart. It's not an academic thing. It has to come from the lave. So now, come back outside for a second. Now that we were talking about Binah, let's remind ourselves, I don't see it that people have the chart still with them, but if you have the chart, if you flip it over to the other side, we speak about the Yud Kei Vav Kei. And maybe hold it up for the Chaver who don't have it. Yeah, so here you have Yud Kei Vav Kei. And in Yud Kei Vav Kei we have the Sefiros as they manifest in Partsufim, right, and correlate to the Olamos. But let's talk about Partsufim now, right, where they show up as like algorithmic personas, Kiviyachal, and interact with one another thereby. And we have, do you mind if I borrow this? So we have over here, just for the video, for the Chaver to see, we have the Yud of Yud Kei Vav Kei that relates to Keser, right? That then becomes the parts of Atik Yomi or Arak Anpin. Then you have the Yud, which is Chachma, which is the parts of Abba, right? The father. Then you have the Hey of Binah, which is the aspect of the mother, right? So already you can sense compassion, right? A mother is so compassionate, and that's the aspect of the womb, like we described. And Chachma is that which the father contributes, coming from Libuna Demaycha, coming from that whiteness of the brain, which is the passion, which is the Ratzon, right? Which is the desire, right? That becomes channeled down into the Zera, that then is Neklat, then comes within the womb of the mother, and thereby all of a brand new reality, right? Of a new Tzelem Elokim is able to be born. What a Pella. What a Pella, right? How could a person not believe in God? What a Pella. There's the fact that we live in a world where that's happening constantly, that people are giving birth. It's a nace, like nisim. It's an incredible thing. You just get used to it, so you know. And then we have the Vav, which is Gematria 6. So that's the 6 Sefiros from Chesed down to Yesod, and that becomes the parts of Zer Anpin. And then finally the last Hey, which is Malchus, which is called Nukva, which is the feminine counterpart to Zer Anpin. So if you have Yud Kei Vav Kei and the Sefiros are all wrapped up into these 4 letters, then just by simple cheshbon and contemplation, I'm sure that we mentioned this in the past, there are 2 letters that are the same, right? Yud is not Vav, but Hey is Hey, and there are 2 Heys. And those 2 Heys are Binah, right, which is the parts of Ima, and Malchus, which is the final Hey, which is the parts of Nukva, the Zer Anpin. Both are feminine. We have mother and daughter, Kiviyachol, right? Mother and daughter. And how amazing is it that Binah is the heart? And what is Malchus? We've learned this many times now. Tefillah, Peh, Dibur, words. So here we're speaking about utilizing the energy of Binah, the first Hey, to manifest in Malchus. So that we can draw our Diburim, our Malchus should be drawn from Binah. I've said this in the past also, but it's not like a cute Dvar Torah. It's just so deep because it's exactly expressive of this concept without now going into the whole thing of Galus Mitzrayim and Galus Hadibor, which I've spoken about also. But when we got out of Mitzrayim, which the whole thing is Tikkun Hadibor or Gu'ulas Hadibor, which is why the whole Pesach Seder is all about speech, right? And the whole thing is the Haggadah and Kol HaMarbel is Saper B'Tzias Mitzrayim is a Meshubach, and it's all about Dibor, 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 Dibor. The pasuk says, "L'chol b'nei Yisrael la'yachratz kelev l'shayna." When Klal Yisrael were leaving, the dogs didn't bark, the dogs didn't disturb them, right? La'yachratz kelev l'shayna. Says the Dagel Machne Ephraim that I mentioned a few minutes ago. This great tzaddik Rabbi Ephraim of Sadokov. He says the way to read the pasuk is "L'chol b'nei Yisrael la'yachratz." When Klal Yisrael finally left Mitzrayim, they were not disturbed, they were not attacked, they were not bothered. And the next two words are not to be read Kelev L'shaynai, but Kilev L'shaynai. Because finally their Dibor was drawing on the heart and the Lev. Bina and Malchus were unified. Kilev L'shaynai.
I heard a God say that's why a dog is a man's best friend.
Yeah.
Because he's a mamish kelev. He's like mamish.
Sure, there's something very heartfelt about dogs.
They feel the heart.
That's right. That's right. It's all love. All love. Mamish. So, I mean, it's interesting. The Medrash says that all of Klal Yisrael had dogs when they left Mitzrayim. Wow. Yeah, I mean, you could understand it in a more practical sense. They were all shepherds. You know, they had sheepdogs. But over there it says that each, it says kol, I can't remember the lashon, it's just an interesting thing parenthetically once we're on the topic. It says that all of Klal Yisrael took their dogs. This is kol echad v'echad v'Yisrael v'kalbay, like everyone and their dog, and they like went and stood on the Mitzrayim's necks or something. Like, you know, it's the Medrash makes reference to everyone in Klal Yisrael had dogs.
It's saying every man and his dog.
Huh? Every man and his dog, maybe it comes from that.
Yeah.
Right? So dogs are connected to this thing of Lev. Absolutely. Okay, right? So that's what we're trying to do. Yeah. So on a deeper Sefirah level, which we always have to be thinking, because Rabbi Nachman is really working, you know, kabbalistically the whole time. We're drawing Diburim Malchus from Binah, words from the Lev. So how do you get that? How do we get that? Says the Rebbe, when a Jew wants that their Torah, that their teaching should be heart-centric, they need to be accessing it from that heart. And there's only one way. There's only one way. The only way is through prayer. And this is the chilek. You could have a person who knows how to give tons and tons of shiur. If a person is a huge Talmud Chacham, if they don't daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's like, you know, I work organizationally with a lot of kiruv, you know, professionals, people involved in kiruv, and we're always talking about different strategies, different things. You know, so a couple of months ago, I put together a pamphlet of tefillas, you know, taken from Likutei Moharan, and I put it together. I want to assume that everybody says those tefillas every day. Part of me thinks that they never said them once. Okay, but I don't want to say anything bad. I don't know. But if I know people a little bit, I mean, I haven't seen any copies around, and I highly doubt people save that PDF and read them. How could it be that we're not davening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that tefillah, hishtadlu v'harbu tchino b'akasha? How could we teach if we're not humbly davening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, give me siyata d'shmaya that I should be able to teach? Let me put it in more practical terms, okay? Let me put it in more practical terms. It is going to be impossible for us to communicate godliness to other people, which all of us need to do in one way or another, because we've said now millions of times, we are all mamlechas kohanim, we all need to be kohanim. if we have not cultivated our own authentic relationship with Hashem, and there's only one real way to do that, in a direct sense, not in a metaphysical sense, but in a relationship sense, and that is tefillah. If we are not people who excel at davening, we cannot be people that truly excel at teaching Torah. Because it's not coming from a place of heart. So the Rebbe says the way to get words that are the dvarim chanim kegachal eish from that heart, that realm of compassion of Binah, is b'tefillah b'vakasha. And not only that, listen to this. Says the Rebbe, every single person who endeavors to try to be mefarish the Torah, again in a compassionate way, to draw people close, which is the whole purpose of Torah. That's the whole purpose of teaching Torah in the first place. Is that before they begin to explain something, they need to first pour out their heart in davening to Hashem. Can you imagine? Imagine if every Maggid Shir in the world, before they started to give Shir, they daven for 5 minutes, maybe even 5 seconds will take, where a person goes to a corner before they start, before they go into school, and they daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please help that my word should have siyata d'shmaya. Help us should be mekarev and amarachik. Help that my words should be reflective of your infinite compassion. Chazde Hashem ki lo yisavnu ki lo yichalu rachmav. Kedei la'oyer leiv ha'elyon. And that awakens that heart. La'ashpia alav diburim kegachal eish. And then their words are words of warmth, words of relationship, words of. Va'acher kach yaschel levar. And then he can start giving shir. Because then the rock, which was the tzur levavi, opens up, and what comes out of it? Mayim, ein mayim ala Torah. Pasach tzur levavi, kasviv al luach libecha, right, where there are words. Yezuva mayim, mili besela, words come out of the rock. Hainu be'uriyat Torah. And now we can understand, based on the introduction that we gave on Wednesday, we can understand why this Torah daika, Rabbi Nachman sat for like 2 hours and just... it couldn't begin. Because could you imagine what kind of tefillah? Rabbi Nachman said about himself, it's brought in Chaim Moharan and Sichos Ran as well in a different form. The Rebbe said, my yispodidus is when I'm sitting with the kehillah. The Rebbe said different things. He said, I'm able to dance when I'm sitting still, and I'm able to talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when I'm totally silent. Internally, he was shaking the heavens with his prayer before he began to reveal this tefillah, which is all about the necessity to daven in order to channel words. That means that this whole teaching is words of compassion. We should feel that. It's the Lev HaElyon.
Torah is tefillah.
It's right. And turning Torah into tefillah, tefillah into Torah. Beautiful. Shivchi kamayim libech. Nachon. I think he's going to say that pasuk, if I'm not mistaken.
Also keep in mind that when he's in the water that's coming out now, it's the rock that's been spoken to, rather than Aiden. Okay, what do you think? Hold on one second. Wait. Maybe I was my
Aiden, yeah.
I thought I tradition.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're going. So let's let him say it. That's exactly where we're going precisely.
Just one quick thing is that when we did our rabbinic training program, and we had a public speaking training, one of these things, it was very good. It was very cool. But I just remember him saying an amazing line. This is very true, by the way. Is you don't want to be the maggid who's always davening last minute before his shir. He was talking about preparing shir, right? And about since then, or 3.5 years later, every time before a shir, I'm always like, no, halavai. You want to be the guy who's going in a minute before davening because it's a different league. In a way, it's a different league. He's right professionally.
This opens up a whole topic. Yeah, but there's not a profession. That's the problem.
But exactly.
So we can't have professional training for something that's not a profession.
He's right mitzad stress.
Yeah, mitzad stress, but mitzad authenticity. Sometimes coming into shir with a broken heart and not having all the right words. Exactly. What do you think? Rabbi Nachman was a professional speaker. Exactly. What do you think? These were public. They did public trainings. That Baal Shem Tov took a course. You know what I'm saying? What kind of thing is this? They were authentic people, so they came in and they spoke from their heart because they were people that cultivated their own relationship with Hashem, and they didn't impress people because of their linguistics. They impressed people because they knew they were heart. Because it was emes. That's the Ikar Nakuda. We don't need professional training courses for rabbinics. That's not the problem, Chevra. That's not the problem. People aren't not coming to shul because the rabbi doesn't know how to speak professionally enough. People aren't coming to shul because they don't get the sense that the rabbi is on fire. And Adarabba, now you started me ranting. I would say one of the problems is, but it's true, what should I say? One of the problems is that people sense that the Rav is there because it's his job, and it's a profession. And maybe if it's a profession, they don't want that. So sometimes it can be counterproductive, I'd say. You know? Now, the ideal is maybe we should have both. Yes, you should have Rabbanim who know how to speak and know how to, whatever. That's good. That's also good. But that's not the main thing. The main thing is tefillah. Kesher with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, really working on ourselves, really living it. That's the main thing. And you can't really teach that, I mean, you could teach it, but not in courses, I don't think. That's it. That's the whole thing. So it needs to be tefillah kadei la'oyer leva elyon la'ashpia alav diburim kegach le'esh va'achar kach yaschel levar ki achar kach niftach hatzur v'zu v'meim avayna be'uriyat Torah. So says the Rabbi's Gimel v'yesh chilik ben beir sh'adam avar bein le'vein atzmi le'vein beir sh'adam avar l'rabim. Therefore, there's a very big difference between a person coming up with chidushim on their own, right? And so if the tzaddik is sitting in his office with lots of sefarim and being mechadesh different interpretations, then when he's mufarish it parabim. The whole sefer Ma'arinayim, which is quite large, it's quite a large sefer, it is. That's a difficult sefer, and the pieces are very lengthy. It's an extraordinary sefer. One of the reasons it's not more popular is because it's very long. And so the other Hasidic Sfarim, can take a little bit, as you open it up at Kiddush and you learn 2 minutes Kiddush Levi, short bite-sized piece Dekamach and Ephraim. Many of the Sfarim are more contained. Ma'arinayim is pages and pages and pages. It's the same reason the Baal Tanya Sfarim and Chumash, they're not like easy reads. You sit down, you go for pages, the deepest Kabbalah in the world. The whole Sefer Ma'arinayim, which was published by his not his grandchildren, his Talmidim. His Talmidim published it, and they wrote, they transcribed the Torah that he was teaching.
Rabbi
Menachem Nachum of Chernobyl, a Chernobler. Is like a first, second generation Hasidus. Apparently, the original material for Sefer Ma'arinayim was thousands and thousands and thousands of pages, and maybe it's not so shaykh to what we're saying now, but anyway, once I'm starting to say it, he only included those Torahs because he went through all of them, and he only included the Torahs that he didn't remember saying, because he said they must have come from beyond me. So all the other Torahs that I worked out on my own, leave out. I don't want that printed. He said the Torahs that ma'amish came min hashamayim, that I didn't even remember because I had so little to do with it, that you put into the Ma'arinayim. So the Rebbe says over here, there's going to be a difference between the biurim, okay, maybe it is shaykh, that a person sort of works out on their own, and between when a tzaddik is darshaning, I would say daika when they're not prepared, like shalosh shudis. I don't think that tzaddik can prepare their shalosh shudis Torah. The lights were off and they just spoke. They didn't prepare it. They just spoke. And because they were immersed in Torah, memela, they knew what to say. They didn't have to prepare. You and I had this conversation the other day. Right? It's not, they prepared. They were prepared. They were prepared. Because they had already absorbed enough Torah and Yerushalayim that they could just flow. So when a person is darshaning in public, and listen to this, it's so amazing. It's not just that he davens to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but who mekasheres atzmayim nishmeisehem, that the Rebbe, that the tzaddik binds his soul. We talk a lot about binding our soul with the tzaddik, Irina Mekasher, but we don't realize that tzaddik is busy being Mekasher his nefesh to all of us. He's saying Harina Mekasher before he davens. He says Harina Mekasher atzmi l'chola Yehudim shebedoreinu, l'chola Yehudim amitiyim sheich ne'afar kedoshim shavar tzema, right? Ubefrat to each individual Jew. V'shoifech sichoy tfilas l'fnei Hashem yisbarach, and he's binding his tefillah. What kind of tefillah is it? It's not for himself. You have to realize the tefillah that the Rebbe is saying is not for himself. It's not Rabbi Shalom, give me siyata d'shmaya, I should give a great shir, and everyone should think that I'm a super, orator and Talmud Chacham and Magid. No, the tefillah is help me reach these people. That's the whole point of this. Not a profession. The whole point is that we want to inspire people. That's the whole thing for you, not for me. So meaning his tefillah is mikushar to the neshamas. Right? Not just that they should be impressed by the shir. The people should be moved. They should be moved. They should change. They should evolve. They should develop a job of a Rav. Something else you were speaking about the other day, which I actually mentioned to a Rav recently. The job of a Rav should be not simply to leave the shul as they found it, meaning that the shul was serviced by Rabbi so and so from this year to that year, and from this year to that year, this rabbi serviced the shul and sort of keep the upkeep and make sure that whatever people have place to ask shilas, which is good. Someone darshans on Shabbos, which is great. Not taking away from all this. This is beautiful and wonderful. But I think that the job of a Rav is to elevate their kehillah. And that if each Rav was really doing their job, by the time over the span of 50 to 100 years, and we all know Rabbanim like this. I could give one example, Rabbi Eitan Feiner in the Five Towns. I don't know if anybody knows Rabbi Feiner. Rabbi Feiner is one of the Gedolim, and there's nothing to talk about. He's mamish, a gadol b'Torah, but again, like all real Gedolim, that's not his real greatness. His real greatness is his gadol b'midas. You know Rabbi Feiner at all? I want to bring him one year, get him. We tried for the Aleinu conference. He is mashehu miyuchad, and I'm zocheh to be very close with him and have a very, very good relationship with him, very warm and close relationship with him. He's a gadol. He took over a shul called the White Shul, where I grew up, not really davening there, but quasi there, quasi in Aguda, right across the street. And he took a shul that was mamish dying out. Mamish dying out. He transformed the community in ways that are unimaginable. He mamish, he really, really changed the community, and the reason is because of the authenticity factor. He is a great speaker, and he is brilliant, etc., etc., etc. But I've never seen before, I could think of a few other examples of a Rav who is totally, his whole life is mesirus, like ad ein shir. He is one with his role. He every waking minute is dvekas and communicating it to other people. Remarkable. So there were people like this, but I think that over a span of like 50 to 100 years, if every Rav of a couple of decades did this, so then slowly but surely people, families, and people would be elevated and upgraded and developed. But I'm not just talking about in quantity of Torah learning, right, which is usually the metric. I'm talking about in quality of davening. Not in quantity of learning, quality of davening. Because that's really the benchmark for a relationship. How is the davening in the shul? How is each individual's connection? Like I like to say, nobody comes to a meditation event and talks. Right? There is a social element, but the reason you came to that, wellness studio or whatever was to meditate, because you're trying to do something. The reason we come to shul is not to socialize. The reason we come to shul is because there's an avodah to do. Eizu avodah shebalev. It's called avodah. Have you aimer zu tefillah? There's an avodah. There's something to do. And if a real leader is supposed to be in this way, to be mekasher himself with their neshamas, and to daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rebbeinu D'Amakola, help that I should elevate these people, help that I should service them. But not their guf, their Orthodox bodies, their Orthodox Jewish bodies. Help that I should service their souls. The collective spirit of the Jewish nation that's neslabish in them. So then, bevadai hein kel kaber lo yimas, the pasuk that's applied to davening to with a minyan also, but then certainly HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not reject the tefillah of a person who's davening with a rabbin. But when he's all alone, it could be that it doesn't have the same siyata d'shmaya. That's why I always say, whatever I humbly am able to do is only in direct result of the people. And I think that we see that b'chush. I think that the siyata d'shmaya that's compounded, even though Mendy likes smaller chavras, but I personally feel that it's a different universe. The more chavra that are there, the more siyata d'shmaya. and it really is. It becomes something that's ru'il ischabed. It becomes something that is. Can't explain it. It's mashu acher. That's my feeling personally. It's a tfilas rabbim. It's an avodas rabbim. It's a serious thing, you know. V'zeh b'chinas baruch shekivanta v'dibarta el hasela le'inayim. Says Rabbi Nachman, this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe. You're coming to the rock, to the tzur, to the sela, to draw forth water because the be'er shel Miriam was nistalekes, and now nobody has words kegacha le'esh. There's only one way. Daven le'eineihem, in their presence. Shetfilas chatia b'shash ha'tzibur mikubatzim. It is specifically when the tzibur gathers together, v'zeh b'china v'zeh hakel asa'am. And this is an aspect of the mitzvah of hakel, right? Where the king reads from the Torah, dafka when everyone is gathered together, because it needs to be a rabbin. It needs to be a rabbin.
Kibbutz.
A kibbutz. Needs to be a kibbutz. This is obviously the connection to Tar Yates, where we also, for a different reason, because we were speaking about his dakros hapanim, how it's important to see the tzaddik and to be, in person by tzaddikim as opposed to learning from Sefarim only. So here the Rebbe says this is also the chiluk between learning from a sefer and hearing from a tzaddik. Because when a person is there in person by a tzaddik, his soul is incorporated in the prayer of the tzaddik that the tzaddik is davening before he begins to teach. And Mamela, it isn't just that this person is hearing Torah, they are in the Torah, meaning the Torah was said for them. And they feel like the tzaddik is speaking directly to them. Because the tefillah increases kedusha in Shemayim, and when it's a tefillah that emerges as a result, right? Because it's not the kehila is not davening, the tzaddik is davening, but his davening is an iskashrus to the neshamas of the people. He might sefes kedusha lamala that increases kedusha above, and that's waking up the Lev Ha'elyon. And to the extent that there are more and more people there, means the tefillah is that much stronger because it has to incorporate and begging HaKadosh Baruch Hu help that I should be able to reach all of these people. So then there's more kedusha lamala. The Lev Ha'elyon is warmed. And it splits open, and Torah is shofech. Torah flows forth, pours forth. Hakol if you roiv anashim. Everything it depends on how many people, and it's not about numbers. It's really not about how many people who come. It's about the quality of the whole inyan. Is completely dependent, spiritually speaking. Hakol if you roiv anashim kain yoser kedushasai. That's how much more holiness there is. 10 people, Shechina Sharia, and all the people that come afterwards, more chilakim of chilik eliki. And when you sit in silence with 3 people, is different than when you sit in silence with 10,000 people. It's different because there's more godliness there. It's just different. B'Rav brings about the Hadras Melech, Malkus Shel Olam. Bebechinas va'ata kadosh, Ribbana Shalom, your kedusha is Yoshev Tehilas Yisrael. Relies upon Tehilas Yisrael, which means tefillos that incorporate Yisrael. Tehilas Yisrael. Prayers that are inclusive of all of the neshamas that are present. And va'ata kadosh Yoshev. Our access to the kedusha of the Lev Ha'elyon is totally on Va'ata Kadosh Yoshev. It depends on, like a person sits, they lean on the chair. Tehilas Yisrael, and this is the aspect of the concept of a Sirusa de L'Sata and a Sirusa de L'Ela. Right, a Sirusa de L'Sata means an awakening from below. That we're the ones that are triggering, channeling. We are catalyzing the inyanim of Shemayim, and so the Lev is there, but we have to open up that heart. How do we do that? with Isirusa de Lasata. Isirusa de Lasata means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was waiting for us. He relies on us. Va'ata Kadosh Yoshev Tehilas Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was sitting on us. He was waiting for us to do what we need to do. When we can daven, and it's nitaisif of many, 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 many souls, that can split open the Leva Elyon. How do we refer to Isirusa de Lasata and Isirusa de La'ela in Kabbalistic terminology? You know? How do we refer to the awakening from below Kabbalistically? Mayin Nukvin and Mayin Duchrin. The lower waters and the upper waters. When we are able to be Shivchi Kamayim Libech, when our own lave is able to be Shofech Diburim of Tefillah before Hashem, that's Mayin Nukvin, right? When we're able to let flow our feminine waters, so to speak, of the lower realms, then Mayin Duchrin. That opens up the Ein Mayim Elatayra. And this goes back really to Torah Aleph and Torah Beis about the interplay between Torah and Tefillah, where Rabbi Nachman's whole Torah is surrounding, right, around this relationship that they have. And over here we see it from a different angle. Over there we said that our tefillahs rely on our Torah. Over here we're saying our Torah relies on our tefillah. And of course it's both. It's symbiotic. Har Sinai, Har Habayis. With all associated elements that we've learned in all the previous teachings. Right up. Hanagas HaYichad, Hanagas HaMishpat, Yediyah Bechira, V'chule, 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 V'chule. Endless V'chules. Because all of reality aligns along that inyan. So that's Va'ata Kadosh Yoshev Tilas Yisrael. Ayidei Tilas Yisrael Netoisev Kedusha. That adds on Kedusha. Gam Kalil Anashim Ha'im De Mishas HaDrush Nichner Shasam Ayidei HaToiv Shebechacham HaDoresh. All the people who are there at the time of the drasha, whatever rab that they have is nullified as a result of the Chacham HaDoresh Ulafi Achna'a, and in accordance with how much Hachna they have, how much subjugation, Kei Nichna Ma'ayvim. So all of our external enemies, which are only mirror images of our internal enemies, you understand? If we had gotten rid of the Hamas inside of us, there would be no Hamas outside of us. If we got rid of all the Nazism inside of us, right, there would be no Nazis outside of us. It has to do with inside. If we get rid of our inner oivim, that stands surrounding that leva elyon. Yerushalayim can find itself surrounded by non-Jews. And that's the leva. So the leva can be surrounded by klipas. And the way to get them away is samti b'toich hagoyim, is that the kehila is nichna through the drush, and as a result of that can clear away all the enemies that were surrounding the leva Elya and the leva Tachton, and we can get back to Yerushalayim, which is Yerushalayim, which we're going to carry. האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שאני